My wife friend-zoned me and wants a platonic companionship. So your wife wants a divorce is what you're saying? Because what?
What do you mean?
This story came May 7th, 2024. Let's just find out what he means by this. My wife, 35 female, and I, 35 male, have been married for 15 years and we have been together for 20 years. Whoa, you were 15? That's crazy. Amazing. Crazy. We have 2 kids, 12 and 14. We absolutely adore and work tirelessly to provide the best possible life for them. For the past 3 years, things have been somewhat bumpy. I understand that our kids are at an age where they require a ton of our attention and resources with school, band, club sports, and other extracurriculars, and I'm aware of the physical and emotional toll that can have on marriages. However, for the past 3 years, my wife and I had very little intimacy and very little sex, and we've been trying very hard to work on that aspect of our relationship. This past year has been the most difficult and by far the darkest year in our marriage. We didn't talk very much. We essentially became roommates, co-parenting our kids under the same roof. It was very depressing and very demoralizing. It was to the point where we began contemplating divorce, and it became very dark and gloomy in the household because of that. We began seeking help, both individual therapy and couples therapy, and it seems to have helped some. Little by little, we started to get along and started to have deeper conversations about what our marriage looks like and what we would love for it to look like. This is where it gets tough. As time passed, my wife started to tell me she was no longer in love with me and that she only saw me as a best friend. That she only loved me in a very platonic way, and this was one of the main reasons she didn't have any desire for intimacy, let alone sex. This was very shocking to me, and quite frankly, I was devastated. Yeah. You don't really expect to be friend-zoned once you're already married. I think Hilary Duff is coming out with a song about this called Roommates. There was a little snippet and it's pretty much on the topic of this. Unrelated. I became angry and depressed, and I couldn't fathom the thought that I was no longer wanted or desired by the person I felt completely in love with. Things began to deteriorate again, and not long after, we were back to square one. I sat down with her one afternoon and had a heart-to-heart and began to ask questions about where the root of the problem lies. And her answer was, I don't know. And that, quote, I have built up resentment towards you, but I don't know where it stems from. As you can imagine, this provides very little to no insight on how to approach this. I'm puzzled and frustrated, but I don't know what to do at this point. Currently, we have arrived at a place where she says that she has no sex drive and no desire for intimacy or connection. She says that all she wants is simply companionship, which basically means our co-parenting roommate dynamic. I asked her what I could possibly do or what it is about me that is so unattractive or undesirable, and her response is always, I don't know. She stated that she does love me, but it's not the same. That she has been feeling disconnected for years and that our marriage just takes too much work. Well, from what I hear, marriage is work. So her focus is only the children for now, and that my co-parenting contributions are meaningful to her in our home. I'm at a loss and I'm mainly venting. It's tough to realize that the person you love has no feelings for you. I feel like at this point, I'm only here to contribute financially and as a parent. I feel like what she means with companionship is that she's comfortable with convenience of having a good father for our kids and my financial contribution to the household. In regard to intimacy and or sex, she basically told me that it's just something she's not interested in or wants at this time. She mentioned that the only way to get to a point for any of that is to be intoxicated. What? Which to me is incredibly awful and very wrong. I mean, that seems incredibly unhealthy. The only way I could get to that point is if I get intoxicated. I feel like that's just telling you everything you need to know, but Let's continue. I told her I do not think forcing herself to have sex or be intimate by drinking or smoking is good, and I declined to be part of that, which, to my surprise, it upset her and made her even more distant. We're both extremely honest and transparent. We've never cheated on each other, and we are always free to look through each other's phones, emails, social media, etc. And we hardly ever do. I asked if there was someone else, and she declined. Honestly, I believe her. We then peacefully went through each other's things, and as expected, it was clean. We've always been very forward, even with the hard topics, so I don't smell or feel any foul play or infidelity. Am I wrong for declining to be only intimate with her when she's intoxicated? I do not know how to help our situation, and I'm starting to become a bit anxious and desperate. We're both fairly young and healthy individuals and good looking. We both have good standing careers and we're good parents. I'm just not sure how our lives could have driven us to this point. I would love some outside perspective on this matter and some insight on how to address something like this. I feel so awful to be unwanted and undesired by my own spouse. I hate it. Are you the a-hole? Absolutely not. First of all, she said that she didn't want to with you, and then changed it to the only way I could get to that point is if I'm like, I don't know how you could offend me more, to be honest. We have a top comment here that apparently is important information. Commenters looked at this Redditor's history and found that they were swingers. So OP responded and said, we did some swinging in the past. That was fun for some time. We mutually decided to stop doing it, and we have established it's not the case. When we were swinging, however, our marriage seemed to be in a good place. This is something we did disclose to our couples therapist and made sure to include it to make sure we're not neglecting an obvious potential issue. Well, that adds a layer, surely. That adds a layer, right? We have our first update. It came 1 week later. I wanted to give you guys an update of how the therapy session with my wife went this week. One of the main things that is the buzzword of this has been the term resentment, and it has been really eating me up inside knowing my wife keeps telling me she doesn't know why she's resentful or doesn't know why this is affecting her emotionally and mentally. I brought this up with our therapist once again and resurfaced the conversation about being married for so long and being together since we were 14 years old. Our long history of growing up and now having children when she was 19 years old and me 20 significantly changed the trajectory of our lives. We experienced severe poverty and many hardships in the process, and we essentially had zero social life for the past 10 years because we were so busy raising babies. She followed up with tons of questions directly, mostly at my wife, about her feelings towards this, and 90% of the responses were very our kids focused. It definitely felt like she was afraid of saying, yes, it sucked, because she would feel guilt or shame because it would imply that she regrets the kids. I mentioned this in a session, and the therapist encouraged her to look at this outside of the lens of being a mother and try to view it a bit more selfishly and individually, and it was very eye-opening. My wife mentioned that she was very frustrated with the fact that we did miss out on many things of our life. She also was very clear in saying, I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all of my friends. This was huge because one of the big pieces that has caused a strain in our lives is how isolated we have been, again, busy raising kids. I feel like this is super relatable. I don't have kids and I'm not married, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do have friends who are married and have children, and I give props to all parents. I am aware of the sacrifice you make when you decide to become a parent, hence why I haven't done it. So I feel this is incredibly relatable. It's not that you don't regret it, but maybe you're mourning parts of a different life you could have had if you didn't have children. Because you do. You have to sacrifice everything in your own life to raise children. So I totally can understand this perspective, but please chime in. Chime in. I followed up by reminding her that it's important to have good friends and to make time for herself and her friendships. For the past 3 years, we've had multiple conversations about friends and how it is important to have them in our lives, especially when you have similar peers that can help in many areas of life that perhaps we have no experience navigating, and even simply just for enjoyment. It's always been something my wife avoids, even though she's always been someone who needs the external stimuli. The main reason for her not investing in friends or even herself has always been the kids. At this point in our session, I started to feel like there was a common denominator in most of the frustrations and problems that she was experiencing, the kids. So I simply asked her, do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that I got you pregnant so young? I wasn't ready, but she said that she was upset at me for that. Was that not planned? Obviously, it takes two people to tango in that situation there. You know what I mean? Like if you guys just decided and had unprotected, But I guess you could hold some sort of resentment and like blame the other person, even though it isn't their fault. Oh, this is deep. Truly, I'm not qualified. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. She also followed up with the fact that she knows that's unreasonable. Oh, because it takes two to tango. Okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. I did feel like it was progress because it gave us kind of something to work on and help alleviate some of these burdens. So we agreed to invest more time in nurturing good friendships, both together and individually. Towards the end of the session, we began to discuss what actionable items we would like to take from this session. At this point, it was still all very ambiguous and blurry as to what the outcomes were. I was very direct and very forward in asking my wife what her plan is moving forward. She started basically saying the same thing, that she doesn't have any desire to be intimate or sexual with me as of now, and that she loves me immensely and she feels bad for not being there for me. I also brought up the brief swinging that happened, to which for the 50th time, she said it wasn't a problem. I agree with her on this. This was something that was a mechanical approach for a solution to the problem that was very much in existence when we tried this. We both really have no issue with it. We know it happened, we tried it, and we mutually stopped and we turned to the page. I also brought up other life events that may have caused resentment, and really we ended up not getting anywhere else as far as the root for resentment, which was discouraging. I then basically expressed to my wife that I will not be okay with this arrangement. I told her that I've really done everything I can and that this issue really has reached a point where it has nothing to do with me or requires me to do anything that I'm not currently doing. I was very direct and said that I will not be accepting this dynamic and that I need to be with someone who is actively involved in our marriage, works towards resolutions, and is very much interested in maintaining an active intimacy and sexual relationship. I expressed how I am not going to be a convenience and that there was more to life than being roommates and co-parents. I made sure that she knows I love her dearly and that I do want this to work for the better. I also told her I'm fully committed to this marriage, so as long as she is as well, and that if she wasn't, it's okay. However, I will not be part of something where these efforts are not reciprocated. I told her I have no plans of leaving and I do not want a divorce. However, I made it clear that if this dynamic continues, that divorce will be the only outcome. The saddest part is realizing this dynamic already is very cold and transactional. Here's where it gets very interesting. I started working on implementing many of the 180 recommendations that same day. I mentioned it to my wife and said, hey, things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I'm going to honor her roommate and co-parent dynamic without reproach, and that it should be no mistake that I am not happy here and I'm never going to be okay with it, but I am done working on it if she wasn't going to work on it. She agreed and went to bed. I started to build distance and started to basically focus on myself. Very short and transactional. Oh, so you're essentially saying, fine, I'll give you what you want. And now treating her kind of the way she treats you. She asked for help on some personal things, to which I declined, and it really shocked her. She was upset. I explained to her that she is now fully in charge of her own life and her own issues. We didn't talk all day, and we only spoke when necessary. A few days I kept this going, and she was very visibly upset and stressed. I typically react to that with gestures of help or nurturing, but I didn't this time. That night she was crying, telling me she's stressed and she thinks something is wrong with me because I'm indifferent. I simply listened, then I told her that this is the dynamic she proposed and that I'm simply taking care of myself and focusing on myself. I'm not going to lie, it has been very hard to be cold and distant because, as I've mentioned before, I love her and I wish I could hold her and love on her. However, I know this is somewhat manipulative in a way just to get her way and still keep me in the friend zone. So I've been staying the course. We're now going on a week on this gray rock method, which is also called the 180 method, it says. And let's just say there has been many changes on her side. Oh, interesting. I think she's starting to realize there is more to me than just friends and co-parenting. I sent her a text a few days ago, essentially itemizing bills and separating the financial responsibilities 50-50, and she lost her shite. I mean, if you're telling me, like, I just want to be friends and have a companionship, yeah, we're splitting it. What do you mean? I mean, that's not a marriage I personally would want, but if we're gonna stay in it, yeah, that would make sense that you would have a hard time paying for most of the bills if that person's like, hey, I just want to be friends.
And now you're in the friend zone.
She basically told me it was out of left field, to which I responded, hey, friends go in 50-50, and as your friend, I expect nothing less. I don't know. Did the therapist suggest this? Because this doesn't seem like the healthiest idea here, guys. This was very eye-opening because it gave me a glimpse of how I'm really taken for granted and how her level of comfort and convenience at my expense is really overlooked. I pushed through anyways, and I basically told her that this is the new dynamic that she asked for and that it is still a bargain because she would have to have 100% if she was on her own. She's definitely seeking to talk to me more often, and while it's hard to turn down, I hope if things improve, this continues to happen. I've also noticed that she's making more time for herself, aside from being a mom, which is huge because she has pretty much neglected herself for years. I'm very pleased seeing her be more herself. My hope is that as we work on ourselves, the marriage improves. How are we feeling so far? Especially if you are married and you do have kids. What is your outside perspective on this marriage? Is it gonna last? Do you think? Is it healthy? Can they come back from this? What's the deal? We have some updates though, but you know the drill. It's hydration station. We gotta hydrate. Cheers. Hi friends. I just wanted to pop on here fast and say thank you so much for 7,000 subscribers on my second channel. I have been, at this time, my next vlog might be up. I film ahead, so I don't really know. My days are everywhere, but I did film a brand new vlog for some very exciting news and all the behind the scenes of the shoot that I did. So if you aren't subscribed yet, it is at Life with Joss. It is linked in the video description of every single video. So thank you so much for 7,000. All right, so the next update came 2 months later. Let's see if his theory, his little method, is still working. A few significant changes have taken place. We are now almost 9 weeks in on the gray rock method that I mentioned, and it started to render some positive reactions from my wife. So much has changed, and it has changed for what seems to be for the better. This past Memorial Day weekend, my wife asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee because she wanted to talk to me about something. This was huge because I can't recall the last time my wife asked to talk to me about something important. I must admit, I was very nervous and worried about what this could be about, and my mind was racing with the plethora of scenarios of what it could possibly be. Of course, I agreed, and we took some time away from the kids to have this conversation at a local coffee shop. The talk was very constructive in nature. There was a ton of insightful information about herself that helped me further understand where she is in life, both emotionally and mentally. We summarized what the core issues we are encountering are, and she asked me for help. This is new, and I cannot tell you how excited I was to hear something so sincere coming from my wife, who for the last 2+ years has been absent. So, after she was through sharing all of her thoughts, I proposed a plan that I felt was right for us. I also told her that my goal still is and will always be for us to reconcile and be the happily ever after that we vowed to be for each other, and that my love for her is as strong, if not stronger, as the day that we said I do. I explained to her that I was very much trying to protect my feelings and emotions from the rejection and neglect, and that it wasn't personal, it was simply me safeguarding myself because I cannot control her. I can only control myself. Toward the end of the conversation, which was about 3 hours, there was a very high spirit of reconciliation in the room. I told her that my goal is ultimately to make it work. However, I was very clear that I was not going to live under the current circumstances forever. I also explained that I do not want our children to grow up thinking that this was okay or normal because they deserve better as well. She told me she doesn't either. She told me she doesn't know what to do, to which I replied, let's set some clear goals. However, the goals will be for ourselves, not for each other. So here's what we established. All right, we have a point form list here. Number 1, we are in charge of our own happiness. The key here is that she's not responsible for making me happy and vice versa. We both need to seek what the personal plan looks like individually. Also, we're both encouraged to include each other in taking those steps if we want, but it's not required. Next, we are in control of our own individual lives and our own journey. This means we're both responsible for finding the resources necessary to grow, change, and heal. We can definitely help one another when help is requested. However, unsolicited advice or help will not be rendered. Next, we are responsible for communicating. This ensures nothing is left unsaid. If it was never brought up or discussed, it never happened. We're not mind readers, and we need to take ownership when we fail to communicate. Next, make a list of needs and wants. This gives us both clear direction about meeting each other's needs. This also gives us a choice as to what we want and choose to do, compromise on, or decline to do. This list also will not serve as a checklist for accountability. I don't know. Am I like tripping? But this doesn't make sense to me. Are we growing together at that point though? Or are we just growing apart from each other even more, but growing individually? We made it clear we would not be bringing this list up for purpose of arguing, and it was up to the other person to use the list as a tool for growth, transparency, or clarification. We concluded that it was up to us to decide if we will be happy doing these things for ourselves because we care, not to simply check a box. And next, we established a deadline, Memorial Day 2025. At the end of the conversation, we concluded by setting the Memorial Day 2025 as a hard stop to evaluate our lives and our progress. We agreed we would do this with the clear understanding that we will independently decide if we are happy here. If we determine we aren't happy, we will be getting a divorce. We would also both assume full responsibility for what happened should we get divorced. Ultimately, I felt like the conversation was very positive and productive. I've decided I will conclude and I will refrain from this method moving forward as the plan now has changed. As of today, some of the biggest changes I have noticed are her commitment to therapy and mental health. She's taking some antidepressants that seem to be helping her. She's also more confident and in a far better mood frequently. We have started to explore more ways of intimacy in multiple areas, such as physical touch and words of affirmation. Sex is starting to make an appearance, which is exciting. We've also started to work out together, which is great, and we have lost weight, which is exciting. Overall, communication has improved, and I cannot wait to see where this leads. Now, I know we're all wanting to know. Memorial Day 2025, baby. What happened? Did they divorce? Are they together? We have an update a year and a half later. November 29th, 2025. Did they make a comeback, you guys? Are they happy? Are they knocking boots? I feel like I shouldn't know all of this about someone's relationship. This seems like very personal. I feel like I'm reading your diary or I'm in your couples therapy session. But here we are. I realize this final post is far later than I anticipated. Are we still married? Yes. Are we happy? Yes. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. You may be wondering why the hell no, and that is more than fair. The truth is, shortly after my last post, things got worse. Much worse. Just when you think you've hit rock bottom, life has a way of showing you there is still more room below, where it all started to shift. In my last post, I shared the approach I took, the gray rock method, and the truths it uncovered. I was friend-zoned and our marriage was drifting into platonic and I didn't want it. I received a ton of hate for choosing this path, but everyone's situation is different. There is no one-size-fits-all in marriage recovery. I have zero regrets. It helped my wife recognize her own areas for growth, and it helped me rediscover mine. For years, I believed I deserved the pain that I was experiencing of my flaws, but that's not true. During this time, I focused on rebuilding myself, my health, my joy, my identity outside of the marriage. I have since lost over 23 pounds. I ran a marathon. I completed 2 Tough Mudder challenges, developed a consistent exercise and mountain biking routine, started a business, read 6 books, joined a charity, and raised more than $52,000 for my children's school. Whoa. People misunderstand the gray rock method. It's not just about how you treat the spouse, it's about reclaiming you. I'm curious what you guys think about that, especially in a marriage with kids. Where we are now. I gave my wife an ultimatum and we mutually agreed on what we needed to work on along with that timeline. Was the timeline perfect? No. Were there hiccups? Constantly. One powerful shift was recognizing that my wife reciprocated grace and vulnerability much more easily when she saw me practicing them. We began having deeper conversations, ones I didn't even realize that we needed. Many of those issues were mine. I had to confront my struggle with emotional vulnerability. I grew up in a macho culture where men don't cry, and that mentality was silently damaging our marriage. As I worked through that, I learned that allowing myself to be more vulnerable didn't make me weak. It made me accessible. And in turn, it allowed my wife to reach parts of me and care for me in ways that I had never truly experienced. That feeling of being cared for, genuinely cared for, was new, and it changed everything. Over the months that followed, we chose to show up for each other. Fast forward to today. Our marriage is nothing like it was a year ago and nothing like the day I wrote my last post. Is it perfect? No. Is it worth keeping forever? Absolutely. We have a new foundation and a new commitment to the work, not just on our marriage, but on ourselves. Okay, I don't know. It seems like we're still doing a lot of work here, and there's nothing wrong with that. I give credit when people want to work on their marriage, by all means. I have so many thoughts and questions, and I mostly need clarity on what you guys think of that approach. Being in a marriage with kids, if your partner, did the gray rock method, what do you think about that? I'll see you guys in the comment section. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy.